I suppose, really, I could be described as a backroom boy. I don't like being pushed onto a stage. I've never got rid of my Lancashire accent. I wouldn't like to have to stand up in front of a lot of people and talk. That's not my line at all. No, I'm better at writing than talking.
So this is A. Wainwright, born Alfred, A.W. to his tiny circle of friends, and folk hero to tens of thousands of fell walkers. For 50 years, A.W. has been a solitary, elusive figure in the fells. There have been occasional reports of sightings, rarely confirmed, and generally put down to overtiredness or a quirk of the changing weather. But all that time, A.W. has been recording every route and viewpoint and notable feature of the Northern Hills. He captured the sweep and the detail of a whole landscape between the covers of his guidebooks. He made the high places of Lakeland accessible to generations of fell walkers. But by the time they came in their coachloads, he was away in some other quiet corner of the hills, preparing the next book in the series. And all his public saw of him was the back view he drew in each of his Lakeland guides. All they knew of him was the sketchy outline of a life. He was an accountant from Lancashire. He became treasurer of the town of Kendal. The memories of a younger Wainwright occasionally slipped into his books.
Accountancy was my line. I was a pen and ink man. I was trained to believe that accountancy is an art, and it seemed to my juvenile reasoning in those far-off days that accountants must therefore be artists. I remember being told that every page of my ledger should be fit for framing.
From the copperplate of his ledgers, A.W. progressed to drawing. First of all, subjects close to home, the grey, gritty buildings of the Kendal district. Then out onto the fells, at the start of his series of Lakeland guides. Each page hand-drawn from photographs and notes he'd taken on his walks. They were never intended for publication. They were a personal record of his love affair with Lakeland. As an old man, he'd be able to read them at home and relive his journeys in the hills. But he was persuaded to publish, and from then on for almost 40 years, he devoted every weekend and most evenings to the meticulous penwork that became his trademark.
Somebody once said, it would be a Chinaman, of course, that a journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. November the 9th, 1952 saw my first step. It was a good evening for me. It was a winter's night, but I spent it going up Dove Crag and was lost to all else.
Well, it was a perfect escape from municipal work. But it wasn't easy because I had several evening meetings, probably 3 evening meetings a week. And you know what council meetings are. How they love to talk, and I was chafing to get away. It was often 10 o'clock at night before I got home, but left enough time to do another couple of hours, perhaps. The weekends were free, but the weekends were spent walking. So it was done in the evenings virtually. It took 13 years. I never read anything in 13 years, no books at all. I used to be very fond of westerns, but they dropped as soon as I started the books. And it was an obsession. I didn't do anything else. The garden became a jungle for 13 years. But enjoyed every minute of it.
As the minutes and the months stretched into years, A whole department of the Westmoreland Gazette printing works in Kendal was turned over to the Wainwright industry. They've produced more than 40 of AW's books, and many of them are in their 80th or 100th impression. The shy man who once thought his books would only sell in tiny, limited editions has now sold more than 1 million copies of the guidebooks. Having done the Lake District, his customers encouraged him to go further afield, to the Pennine Way and the Howgill Fells, and into the high limestone country of Yorkshire. And that's where we began our summer with Wainwright, in the land of the Three Peaks, north of Settle. After much persuasion and any number of second thoughts, AW had agreed to show us 5 of his favourite walks. The Lake District and Teesdale would come later. But to begin, we arranged to meet on a bitterly cold morning on the summit of Ghent.
Do you always walk on your own?
By preference, yes. I'm surprised more people don't. Although, of course, the authorities advise them not to do. Always take a companion, tell somebody where you're going, that sort of thing, which irks me.
Well, it's not a bad day up here today, but I mean, do you never feel lonely or frightened when you're up here?
Oh, no, not at all, no. I've always regarded the hills as friends. I'm amongst friends when I'm amongst the hills. I don't like to be hurried along by people who can walk faster than I can, and I don't like to be frustrated by people who are lagging behind. So I like to set my own pace, and another advantage is I can vary the route as I want, wander off, change my mind as to where I'm going, without having to consult other people.
That might sound odd, you know, with the Lake District hills on your doorstep, that you choose to come up to this, which is less spectacular in a way, isn't it?
Well, in a way, but I'm very fond of this limestone country. I like to come here. I like Ghent. You can generally depend on having it to yourself. Although, of course, it's popular now as part of the Pennine Way. Yes, I like this.
How far can you see from this summit on a good day?
Oh, there's a splendid panorama on a good day. You can see as far as the Lake District hills, quite clearly over there.
Yeah, over that direction.
Yeah. The mountain you can see there is Ingleborough. Ingleborough's over there. There's Whernside.
Oh, that's the flat-topped one, is it?
That's right. And with Ghent, these are the Three Peaks. There's a very popular Three Peaks walk now, and the plan is to do all 3 tops in a day. And they've even started cycle races now, doing the 3 peaks.
Well, it's obviously the level of traffic you get up here, just judging by the way that this path's been worn away.
Oh, when I first came up Ghent, this was a thin track. You could barely discern it. And that's why the cairns were built. But the cairns now have become obsolete because look at the size of the path. It's like a motorway.
It's
So the cairns are
pedestrian
unnecessary.
dual carriageway, isn't it?
That's right. So they're obsolete now. You don't need the cairns here.
Have these hills ever been inhabited, do you think?
I don't think so. There's no sign of early settlements at all.
Let's walk on down a bit, shall we?
Yeah.
And even in this wind, you can hear the lark so clearly, can't
That's
you?
right, yes.
So what height are we now?
We're just about the 2,000 mark now. Top of Ghent, 2273 feet, not metres. I don't recognise meters. I don't accept meters. So everything's feet. with me.
You refuse to be metricated, have you?
Absolutely. I think this adoption of the metric system shouldn't be applied to mountains. I mean, Great Gable has been demoted to something under 1,000 now. I think it's disgraceful. It's an affront to Great Gable not to be nearly 3,000 feet and something like 1,000 metres. So I don't recognise metres, I don't recognise kilometres.
And you still think in terms of old money as well, do you?
I do, yes, yes.
Mountain climbing satisfies an instinct all men should feel, the urge to get to the top. Mountain climbing is an epitome of life and good practice for it. You start at the bottom, the weaklings and the irresolute drop out on the way up, the determined reach the top. Life is like that.
Have you had a lucky life?
Very, been extremely fortunate. Didn't start too well, mind you, in a 2 up and 2 down with the privy down at the bottom of the backyard. It was cotton town, mill town, Blackburn. An interesting thing is that you tend to forget your early years when you're at work, in middle age and so on. It's when you come to retire that you start thinking back. And I've got some very vivid memories of life as it used to be then. Row after row of terraced cottages, 2 up and 2 down, WC in the backyard, no front gardens at all, flag floors. But at that time, everybody was living in similar circumstances, and you didn't think there was anything extraordinary. Nobody had any money, just sufficient to live on. People died, but they all died from one of 3 causes. There was diphtheria, TB, and everything else was heart failure. Those were the 3 ailments. That's what people died from. Everybody went into the mill. As a child, I used to lie in bed and you could hear the clogs rattling past at 6:30 in the morning. It was a hard life. And certainly until I was about 11 or 12, I thought that would be my fate too.
April visitors will ever afterwards remember Pen-y-ghent as the mountain of the purple saxifrage. For in April, this beautiful plant decorates the white limestone cliffs on the 1,900-foot contour with vivid splashes of colour, especially being rampant along the western cliff, which it drapes like aubrietia on a garden wall.
When did you first see this? How many years ago?
20.
Oh. Because looking at the rock on the top of there, that's not going to last a lot longer.
No.
A good winter gale would take a lot of that off, wouldn't it?
Well, yes.
How did you discover this pinnacle, first of all?
Just by wandering along the base of the cliffs. I was really looking for this saxifrage, which I'd heard about. And it was the right time of year, and there it was, draping the walls. And then I saw this.
Because even coming down the path, we've just come down from the summit.
You don't see it clearly.
No.
No, you've got to get here.
Is there as much saxifrage here as when you first came?
Oh, nothing like, no. Not today.
And perhaps with this new rock fall, I mean, there seems to be a lot of this, which is quite recently dropped
That's right.
off the face of the cliff.
Yes, I think it's lost a lot. It
Perhaps
must
swept
have,
it away
because
with
it was draped like aubrietia, all the way down here in every crack. And now there's very little left.
No, particularly in the in the Lakeland fells, you know, you're forever hearing about people being caught out in bad weather and, you know, rescue services having to go out to them. Have you ever been so badly lost that you've not been able to get back that night?
Oh, no, that's never happened. No, I have a good sense of direction. I think I've only been lost once, and that was quite temporary in a very thick mist. And I was able to prove then that if you can't see where you're going, you do tend to walk in circles just the same. Because I left a very good path to strike away to where I knew I wanted to go, although I couldn't see it. Walked round, and about 10 minutes later came to another good path, which I knew shouldn't be there. And I suddenly realised it's a path I'd just left. I left it again, started off where I wanted to go, and the same thing happened. Another 10 minutes I was back on the path that I'd left. But that's I think that's the only instance where I was ever lost. And that was only for a few minutes.
A.W. has always had a quiet self-confidence, right back to school days, apparently.
No, I did very well at school. And at the age of 12, the headmaster wanted me to go to a school in town, which we called the Higher Elementary School. And I was there for only 12 months. And I came first in every subject except chemistry and physics, which I never understood. But in every other subject, I was #1. And the job was advertised in the local town hall as an office boy. And I thought I'd like that a lot better than being in the mill. And the headmaster didn't want me to go. He said, "You stay here till you're 16. But as I've told you, there was unemployment at home. And those occasions when the landlady came on Friday night for the rent, my mother had to say, "I'm sorry, I can't manage it this week." There were moments of great shame, really, to me. I was upset by that. So that's another reason why I wanted to get to work and bring some money in. Now this is entirely new. This is an innovation which I think the Pennine Way Council must have provided. Wooden walkways.
It looks like ordinary chestnut fencing paling or something.
When I first came, there was just a thin track here. But you see what the terrain's like. It's peaty, it's wet. You won't see sheep here. We've left the sheep behind because they like the grass on the limestone, which is very sweet. They won't come here. But you see, it's getting as wide as a road down here. So all this is new, and it's due to the popularity of the Pennine Way.
Do I get the impression from things you said that you're not awfully keen on party walking?
I don't like party walking at all.
It is the man or woman who walks alone who enjoys the greatest rewards, who sees and feels and senses the mood of the hills and knows them most intimately. To the man in a conducted party, the mountains are prose. To the man travelling alone, they are poetry. Of course, he has nobody to talk to, which is an advantage. And there's nobody to talk to him, which is a bigger advantage.
We've now reached the Carboniferous limestone, the one that's porous, that absorbs water, and it runs all the way around Ghent at about the 1,300-foot contour. Now the openings, the apertures, take different shapes. This is Hunt Pot, and you'll see that the water absorbs a stream which falls into that slit there. Now that hole is 200 feet straight down, and at the bottom the stream continues along a passage towards Horton